Hi there, Malcolm here with my 361st Booktube video, and today I'll be bringing you a review for Alien, Enemy of My Enemy by Mary Sangiovanni. And this is technically the third book of a very loosely connected trilogy of books, the first two being Colony War and Inferno's Fall. I didn't know that going in. Yes, in the other books, it's at the bottom there underneath the other two, but there's nothing really saying that you have to read them in this order particularly. It's like the first three there, also very loosely a trilogy as well. But for the most part, you can take this as a stand-alone story tied into the Alien franchise. And this is a bit of a weird one in that it does seem to have the black goo from the Prometheus debacle, which is one of those films that's completely ignored all the content that has been created since the original film and said, actually, it's this. But then we do have an alien queen in here, which is established in Aliens. So it's another case of picking choice bits from the expanded universe. Anyway, that's a bugbear for another time. There is some loose link to this black goo, which is apparently retrieved from an engineer's ship. But how any of this is known, it's all hearsay and rumour, which doesn't seem to have any basis of origin whatsoever. Anyway, the story starts taking place on a moon orbiting a gas giant that is slowly losing its orbit and is going to crash into the planet very, very soon. And on this moon are two scientific installations. One is run by a company and contains normal science, and the other one, a fair distance away, is owned by Weyland-Yutani and are doing some very dodgy science with xenomorphs. Due to the time constraints from the moon's very limited life expectancy, the scientists have only gone and enhanced the xenomorphs' rate of development, aggression, level of frenzied attack. All the things that a xenomorph really didn't need. And of course, one gets out. Of course it does. So the story starts with this creature getting out and the Weyland-Yutani installation falling, but sending a distress signal over to the other installation saying, one of our experiments has got out, come and help. And that kicks off the adventure. So we follow lead scientist of this other installation, Siobhan, as she goes with her assigned Marines, led by Alec. There's nothing really going on between them, but there is certainly a spark there that could potentially bloom as the story goes on, sort of thing. And of course they go over to this installation to investigate. The story is told over three main segments. First is set on the moon, with this initial outbreak and the consequences of that. Now the first segment we have kind of seen before, certainly with Aliens and Alien Resurrection. Marines with guns, corridors, ventilation shafts, sparking, dangling wires, and an unknown number of xenomorphs, as the hapless crew are picked off. There's a corporate arsehole involved, the doctor who is in charge of the xenomorph research, who they stupidly rescue, which only leads to more problems further down the line. However, not entirely, and I'll get to that. The second section on the ship, I'm not going to say too much about because of spoilers, but certainly it is quite tense, and I think played out quite well. And then the final segment on the other planet sees the interaction between two opposing factions of xenomorphs, which is where the book's title comes in, Enemy of My Enemy, where the survivors of the first two hearts are having to rely on the two factions of xenomorphs wiping each other out enough that they got a chance to finish off whatever's left so that they can survive. Now, on the whole, I really enjoyed this. Yes, it did retread a lot of familiar ground, but I think it did enough new things with it, or it's done in a slightly different way just to keep it interesting. I'm not sure if the story was quite tight or suffered from the lack of characters. When Siobhan goes over to the Weyland-Yutani installation, she only has 5 Marines and 1 synthetic. And yes, they do pick up a few survivors along the way, but the casualty rate, even by that point, has been enough. That means that they're only really offsetting their losses, to be honest. And that's the same throughout the rest of the book. Now, to a degree, there aren't a huge number of names you've got to try and remember, and which one's that one, which one's that one. But at the same time, when you do have one of the characters getting bumped off, there's potentially more of a connection there to that character. Because there's so many of these alien stories, when they're dropping like flies left, right and centre, it's a case, oh no, that person I don't even know who they were has died. Or that guy who chews gum all the time is dead. Oh well, never mind. I didn't know who they were in the first place. So you do become a little attached to this tight-knit team, although you really want to throttle the Weyland-Yutani scientist and really wonder why they haven't. Yeah, and I think that's the other issue I had with the book, is it is full of really, really stupid decisions. First off, Weyland Yutani, this scientist making a xenomorph that is faster, angrier, tougher. Why? Why would you even think that's a good idea? And if you're worried about the moon crashing into the planet it's orbiting, then have a space station. Do it in there where you're not going to... Anyway, and when they get to the installation and they notice the melted acid floors, and one of the Marines realises what this is, but it's a case of, no, I need to make absolutely sure first. No, leave. If there are survivors, they're probably dead, or if they're not dead now, they're going to be dead very soon. You don't muck about with xenomorphs. And then the outside scientist that they do rescue, everything he does is stupid, everything he does is counterproductive, everything he does is counterintuitive. And you just think, somebody just shoot him, or throw him out of an airlock, or hell, just tie him up and gag him. And on part 3, again, there's a few questionable decisions. And there's also the revelation about the synthetic, which goes missing in part 1. You find out what happened in part 3, and it was such an anticlimax. It's a case of, well, that added nothing. Okay, there was a bit of intrigue and you working out what's going on, but the logistics don't make sense, and it was just such a normal thing. I just thought, well, what was the point? But on the whole, I did enjoy it. I went through this pretty quickly. I did feel like I had missed out on something with all this extra stuff with this black goo being bombed on planets and everything, and this terrorist organisation. But at the same time, it did feel like this was part of a larger galaxy universe where other stuff was going on that wasn't necessarily plot related. This is just one corner where the action's happening, but there's stuff going on out there at the same time. So I'd say it's worth buying, particularly if you have Alien, the role-playing game, because at the back there's a special scenario, Trojan horse. So you've got maps, situations, the lore, the objectives, the characters, the locations, all the usual guff you get with role-playing games. You've got 20 pages of content there. So have you read Alien, Enemy of My Enemy? What did you think about it? Or what's your favourite base under siege story? Or what's your favourite Alien story? Comment down below, please. As usual, if you have nothing nice to say, please keep it to yourself. Thank you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and other YouTube things. And until next time, see you later.